Chapter 9: The Myth of Exemption. Every system eventually confronts the same temptation: the belief that it is different, that rules apply elsewhere, that constraints bind others more tightly than they bind us. This belief rarely announces itself openly. It appears quietly, embedded in confidence, success, or moral certainty. It grows strongest in systems that have endured pressure and survived. Exemption feels earned. It is not. What exemption actually means. Exemption is the belief that consequence can be selectively suspended, that certain configurations can operate outside constraint because of intent, importance, scale, or necessity, that urgency justifies violation, that exceptional circumstances permit exceptional behavior without corresponding cost. This belief is seductive. It allows systems to bypass discomfort. It justifies shortcuts. It converts limits into obstacles rather than boundaries. Exemption reframes constraint as negotiable. Why exemption emerges in successful systems. Exemption rarely arises in failing systems. It arises in systems that have worked. Survival reinforces confidence. Success confirms narrative. Stability is interpreted as proof of correctness rather than alignment. Over time, systems internalize a dangerous inference: because we have endured, we are exempt. This inference is false. Endurance does not cancel constraint. It often conceals approaching correction. Scale is false immunity. Scale creates illusion. Large systems assume resilience because of size. They interpret momentum as durability. They confuse reach with capacity. Scale delays consequence. It does not prevent it. In fact, scale increases exposure. Larger systems violate constraints more widely when misaligned. Their correction is broader and more disruptive. Exemption through scale is temporary. Moral exemption. Moral conviction often fuels exemption. Systems that view themselves as righteous, necessary, or benevolent believe their intentions mitigate structural violation. They frame limits as obstacles imposed by less enlightened actors. This framing is powerful. It converts constraint into opposition. Correction becomes attack. Feedback becomes hostility. Moral certainty shields distortion. The language of necessity. Exemption is frequently justified through necessity. Urgency. Crisis. Survival. Progress. Necessity compresses time and narrows perspective. It encourages action without recalibration. It reframes alignment as luxury. Necessity can justify action. It cannot suspend consequence. Systems that operate under permanent necessity eventually normalize violation. Correction follows. Exemption through complexity. Complexity obscures accountability. When systems become sufficiently complex, responsibility diffuses. No single actor appears accountable. Decision paths become opaque. Cause and effect blur. This opacity creates perceived exemption. Consequence still applies. Its path becomes indirect. Complex systems experience correction as surprise because signals were dispersed rather than absent. The temporary rewards of exemption. Exemption often works briefly. It accelerates decision-making. It removes friction. It enables rapid expansion. It produces visible gains. These rewards reinforce the belief in exemption. The cost is delayed. When correction arrives, systems remember the gains and forget the violation that enabled them. Why exemption is self-reinforcing. Exemption feeds on itself. Each successful bypass strengthens confidence. Each avoided consequence reinforces narrative. Each exception normalizes further exception. Over time, violation becomes routine. The system no longer perceives itself as violating limits. It perceives limits as outdated. Correction becomes inevitable. Exemption and the erosion of feedback. Exempt systems lose feedback first. Signals that contradict exemption are dismissed. Warnings are reframed as misunderstanding. Data is interpreted selectively. Feedback loops degrade quietly. Without feedback, recalibration becomes impossible. The system continues on the same trajectory, unaware of accumulating misalignment. When this is ignored, when exemption is unexamined, systems experience correction as shock. The disparity between expectation and outcome feels unjust. The scale of consequence appears disproportionate. The system asks why it was targeted. It was not. It encountered accumulated reality. Exemption and externalization of costs. Exempt systems externalize cost. They benefit internally while distributing consequence outward. They justify imbalance through necessity, authority, or mission. Externalized cost accumulates beyond visibility. When it returns, it does so as systemic pressure rather than localized feedback. Correction becomes uncontrollable. Why exemption feels rational. Exemption is rarely irrational. It is often supported by evidence of past success, internal logic, and external validation. It feels earned rather than assumed. This rationality is deceptive. Evidence of past survival does not guarantee future alignment. Internal logic does not override external constraint. Exemption feels rational because it is internally coherent, not because it is structurally sound. The equality of constraint. Constraint does not differentiate. It applies to small systems and large ones, to sincere actors and cynical ones, to justified actions and reckless ones. Constraint does not recognize exception. This equality is often interpreted as unfairness. It is not. It is what allows systems to interact without constant negotiation. Exemption and the collapse of legitimacy. When exempt systems fail, legitimacy collapses rapidly. Trust erodes because exemption violated shared constraint. The system is no longer perceived as operating within common boundaries. Collapse appears sudden. The erosion preceded it. Why no system is exempt? No system can step outside the relationships that sustain it. Energy must be absorbed. Capacity must bear load. Responsibility must align with consequence. Exemption attempts to sever these relationships. The attempt always fails. The subtle end of exemption. Exemption rarely ends through recognition. It ends through enforcement. Correction arrives when accumulated violation exceeds tolerance. The system's internal narratives collapse faster than its structures. This collapse feels humiliating. It is structural. Closing constitutional statement. No system is exempt from constraint. Success delays correction. Necessity justifies violation. Scale magnifies consequence. Exemption is not immunity. It is deferred accountability. End of chapter 9.